Welcome to the K20 Center's Zoom into Your Career video series. These online career expos give students a way to explore many interesting careers and learn about their career options from volunteer professionals. Nicholas White is an architectural design associate at Benham in Oklahoma City. His primary responsibilities are producing construction documents and coordinating with various consultants to ensure that the completed project will reflect the owner's ideas of how the building should look and function.
So welcome everyone. My name is Will Markham and I'm a mentoring coordinator here at K20. I'm so glad that you are here. Today we have Nicholas White. Nicholas White is an architectural design associate in Oklahoma City. He graduated from the University of Oklahoma with a Bachelors of Architecture back in 2010, and he's been working professionally within the field for nearly 10 years. So we're super excited to have you, Nicholas. Anyone or any of our students that are watching, if you scroll down to the bottom of the video, you'll see a description. There will be a YouTube or a Google form link that you can follow to ask any questions for Nicholas. There won't be anywhere for you to type in a name or school name, so we can't read those out loud. But if you do have questions, you can use that Google form and we'll get to that at the end. So be thinking about any questions you might have as Nicholas is going through his talk, and we'll get to those at the end. So Nicholas, you are free to take it away.
All right. Well, thank you guys for having me again. I enjoy doing these and talking about the profession of architecture and hopefully encouraging some other people to get into it one day. That'd be awesome if people picked up a passion or an interest for it like I have. So I'll just go ahead and jump in it. Like you mentioned, I graduated from the University of Oklahoma with a bachelor's degree in architecture in 2010. Prior to that, I was interning at a small firm in Norman, Oklahoma for 2 years before I graduated. And after I graduated, I stayed with that firm for another 3 years. That firm was ARC in Norman, Oklahoma. And then I moved to Oklahoma City to Reese Associates, where I worked for almost 4.5 years, almost 5. And then I joined Benham Associates, which I'm currently employed at, and I'm a project architect here. And I love it here. I do a lot of challenging work. We do primarily a lot of government work. So I get to travel and do work on various military bases, things like that. So it's a lot of fun stuff that we get to do. And let me back up for a minute and talk about how I got into architecture. And probably from grade school through middle school, I just loved to draw. I always would sketch out little characters and things like that. And I thought for the longest time I wanted to be a cartoonist. So I took every art class you could possibly take. And then once I got to high school, some friends of mine talked me into taking a drafting course. They said it was more fun than doing a regular art class. We got to draw buildings and machine parts and all that kind of stuff. So I said I'd take a look at it, and I started taking the course, and I absolutely loved it. Starting out drawing machine parts, gears and gearboxes and all kinds of different components that went to engines and things like that, just to learn how to draft with the pen and pencil, various different other things that we did in that class, and I loved it. And there were 4 different levels to that course that added on each year that I was in high school. So I took communication systems, which was that introductory course, and then I took architectural graphics, and then I took architectural graphics 2, and then I took a course called R&D, which was basically we learned how to continue to draft with markers, screen printing, and a couple other things. And out of that, I joined the Industrial Technology Club, which allowed us to prepare sets of drawings to take to statewide competitions. So we would have various categories to enter. You could enter, excuse me, you could enter you could draw a set of house plans that were 1,500 square feet, and then you could go above 1,500 square feet, and then you could do presentation drawings, which was just one board, and it was a 2D rendering and a floor plan and an elevation, and just however you wanted to really set it up. And we would submit those for different competitions. And my drafting teacher was, he was awesome. He was phenomenal. He was funny, and he made it interesting, and he he was like the rebel of the school. You know, everybody's got that one teacher that they just love because they do stuff their way. So he would play country music all day and blast it. And if he wasn't playing country, he was playing rock and roll, and he was going around telling you about how music that at the time was terrible and it needed to be like this and all that kind of stuff. So I absolutely loved his class, and he really encouraged me to pursue architecture as a profession. So he kind of sparked that fire in me. And also when I was a kid, my father had a contract company or a concrete company, and I would go with him to job sites and just see them start with just a slab and build a house. So that was always interesting to me, seeing something from the beginning all the way to the end. And then just being able to provide a service, that was big for me as well. So that's what started me on that. I completely ditched wanting to be a cartoonist, and from ninth grade on, I knew I wanted to be an architect. So then when I enrolled in the University of Oklahoma, I already knew what I wanted to do. So there wasn't any taking a year or two to figure it out and taking various courses. From day one, I walked in and said, I want to major in architecture. So let's just lay out my coursework as such. And that's what I did. And for architecture, you can do several different types of programs. The University of Oklahoma has a 5-year bachelor program. So what's great about that is after completing 5 years of a bachelor program, you are then eligible to start sitting for licensing exams. So that's, in my opinion, is licensing. Getting your license is the ultimate of the profession. That's just like the peak. Once you get licensed, it opens so many more doors for you. And it's the culmination, I would say, for me. You work so hard in school, and then you work so hard at the profession, getting all your hours and knowledge and everything built up, taking the test, passing the test, and then there you are. So with that 5-year bachelor's, I wouldn't have to do any more school. I could just graduate and work at a firm and start building up my, they call them IDP hours, which is hours that you need to be able to complete your licensing program. So started building up my hours and then started taking tests, and then kind of fell off the test for a while, which happens for a lot of architects. So I'm still in the process of testing, but I'm trying to get that done. They've changed the format several times. It used to be 9 tests, then they dropped it down to 7 tests, and now they've dropped it to 6 tests. So it's changed a couple of times over the last 5 to 8 years, somewhere in there. So that's one more incentive to get it done because you don't have to go through any more changes. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, is trying to get that done. The other option is a 4-year bachelor program and then a 2-year master's. So if your college of choice does not have a 5-year program, they'll more than likely have a 4-year program. But with only a 4-year degree, they will not allow you to sit immediately for a licensing exam. So you would have to go back and do an additional 2 years to get a master's in architecture, whereas then you could sit for your exams for licensure. So if it interests anybody and you're getting ready to start looking at colleges, that would be one thing I encourage you to look at, is what is their degree structure and how it would affect you down the line. So a daily, kind of my daily responsibilities, they can vary a lot, right? So one day I might be on a site, walking in the site and observing a site with a contractor and various other disciplines, and just kind of making a note about what's going on site, what trades are on site. Are there painters on site? Are there mechanical engineers on site? You know, all that kind of stuff, and just documenting everything and sending that out to the team so everybody's up to date on where we are on the project. I could be in the office just drawing construction documents, which is what I actually love doing, is just sitting down, put my headphones on and just drawing, getting projects knocked out. That's my favorite, but I love everything that I get to do. It's it can change so much. I might be in a meeting with other disciplines, mechanical engineers, interior designers, and structural engineers, and we're trying to figure out the next phase of the project, what we can eliminate from the project, what we can add to enhance the building or take away to reduce costs for the owner. So the meetings can differ in topics. Sometimes I might be sitting in a design charrette and we've just got trash paper out and everybody's sketching ideas, throwing ideas out, saying, oh, we should add the auditorium on this side, or we should add a balcony to this area or an atrium. You know, everybody's just sketching out everything. We'll pin it up on the wall and we'll just kind of say, yeah, let's keep that, let's take that down, and just go through the whole design process. And that's a lot of fun as well, because you can just be as creative as you want to be. And then you can kind of dial it back a little bit to more reality, to kind of think, all right, that's going to be way too expensive, or how do we even construct that? And just kind of rein it in. You get to go get it all out and then bring it back down, and then get something that everybody can agree upon and that you can present to a client that they'll hopefully sign off on, and you can continue with the design process. So there's a lot of different things I could be doing on a day-to-day basis. For Benham, like I mentioned earlier, we do a lot of Department of Defense projects. So I have been to various Air Force bases, Army bases, to do renovation projects, or look at a potential site that they want to add another building onto the base and things like that. And that stuff gets pretty fun, because there's no telling what you'll see on the Air Force base. And some of the stuff, it makes you feel like you're included a little bit. You can't say anything about what you saw, or you can't take any pictures. You can't tell anybody you were here, that kind of deal. And we've had projects where you've had to go through a background check just to be able to draw on the project, because the government like really vets who's working on stuff, because they don't want information to leak out and things like that. And sometimes we'll have projects that we'll work on and we'll print off drawings and we'll mark them up. Those documents have to be shredded. You can't just ball it up and throw it in the trash. That they are very specific about some of the protocols of the projects we worked on. We've even worked on projects for NASA. And I wasn't on any of those projects, but the project teams, the guys have told me about going down there and getting to see the shuttle stuff that they were working on, and all the training facilities that they have down there. So we get to do a lot of cool stuff, see a lot of cool places. And we even do things like plant work. We have a whole division here at Benham that handles projects for like Frito-Lay and all kinds of like bottling companies, things like that. So there's a whole process department. Where are the bottles manufactured? How do we get the bottles from point A to point B? How do we get a loading truck in there to get it loaded up and shipped out? Things like that. So we have a very broad scope of projects, and rarely do you work on the same project twice at this office, which is awesome. We've got people that have been here, 35, 40 years, and they've worked on so many different projects. There's a guy here who works in the mechanical department, and he has literally boxes of documentation from projects 35 years ago. So if you have a question about a mechanical system, he makes a joke, well, let me go check my brain. And he's got a stack of boxes, and he'll go through it and find, here we go. We did this in 1979, and this still applies today, these codes and these regulations and this and that. So there's a wealth of knowledge here at this office, which is very great for someone like me to just continue to collect knowledge and learn from, because I can ask those guys basically anything. And if they don't have an answer, they know where to find it. And it's just, everybody makes each other better here, I feel like, anyway. So that being said, some of the technology that we use is pretty fun. We use various programs to produce construction documents. AutoCAD was the first, well, besides hand drawing, AutoCAD was the first way to produce documents that I was introduced to. And it was basically just a 2D program. It was, you got on the computer, you drew lines, and you produced those lines over and over again until you had a full set of documents. And then you annotated them, and then you printed them, and then you had your project. Then there was also SketchUp. SketchUp, by the way, is a free program you can download off Google. So if you Google SketchUp, you can download it and you can put together all kinds of shapes and things like that. So if anybody's interested, go to Google, download that, and you can just kind of start playing with it and watch some YouTube videos of how people use the program to do conceptual designs and things like that. The program that we primarily use, and I want to say probably 95% of firms globally use, is Revit. And Revit allows you to produce a set of 2D plans while building a 3D building. So what's awesome about that is you're drawing it and it looks like it's flat, and then you go to a 3D view and you've got walls, you've got windows, you've got doors, everything. And then as other disciplines start adding to their model, so you'll have mechanical, you'll have electrical, you have plumbing, you'll have structural, and everybody starts adding their things into the model, you literally see the building being built. So it's pretty cool to see everything go together, and then you can kind of see where things are wrong at. So if mechanical's got a duct running right through your window, you can say, hey, we need to either move the window or move the duct. Let's discuss and collaborate with your project team to figure out some of those issues before you send it off to print and someone bids on it and starts building it. And then you get a call from a contractor, hey, this vent is going right through this window. The window's already in place. What do you want us to do? So you can catch a lot of things early if you're pretty on top of it and collaborating with your team about it. And then to produce some of the pretty pictures that we make, we use various programs to render. One of those programs I really like is Inkscape. It's very easy. It's a plug-in to Revit. So as you're building your 3D model, you can just hit render and it'll produce a picture for you. You kind of fly around it and see what you like, what you don't like. You can change colors, you can change materials, all that good stuff. So that being said, I'll do a very quick demonstration with Revit and hopefully Inkscape if everything works out. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can you guys see my screen? Thumbs up? All right, awesome. All right, so let's say I just want to draw just a quick box, just a house. So I'll pick a wall and I'll just do something funky right there. And we got a little funky floor plan there. So obviously I've got my walls out and I probably need a door to get in there. So I can come up here and pick a different type of door. I'll just go with that one for right now. Pick a door, throws my door in there. Maybe I want to make a room. So I'll choose a different wall style, just a generic wall. We'll wall this off and make this a bedroom or something here. So we'll need a door to get in there. And probably some windows would be nice so you can see out of the house. Put one right there. All right, so we got some just basic windows. And Revit has a bunch of different types of things you can use for windows and doors. And you got big doors, little doors, windows, different window sizes, all that stuff. So now let's just throw a quick roof on here. And I'll select the edges of the house and then I can kind of move it out to give it a little bit of an overhang. Let's go out 2 feet. And I think we missed one. We'll go back and add that. All right, so we got a little bit of a roof here on the highlights, so we'll just get out of that. And let's see what we got so far and see what we need to fix. So we'll go to a 3D view. Well, one thing, our roof is on the ground. So let's go ahead and move that up. Let's say we want to do it at 15 feet. We'll go up 15 and then we'll select all our walls and we'll attach them to the roof so they don't go through. All right. So let's look at it. We got all our windows in. We got our doors. So let's say like that looks like pretty high to have the window here and then your roof there. You know what? Let's lower it. Let's go down to 10 feet. See what it looks like. And it's just that easy that I can just change that. So you can see one of the benefits to using it. And then you can see, well, we don't have a floor. We probably want a floor. So let's floor, and we'll just do a generic floor. We'll select the walls. Messed that one up. It's all good. All right, we got a floor now. And let's go back to the 3D view. Okay, so we're looking decent here. Let's see what kind of materials we have, what it looks like with the rendering. So let's go to Inkscape. This is one of the programs I mentioned earlier, and it's a plugin to Revit, so it's already there. So I just go in here and I'll hit start. I'll get that annoying notification. We'll say okay. Hopefully this works. There we go. All right. So it's kind of dark. You can change the time of day to lighten it up a little bit. Change the various sun angles, things like that. Now it's really nighttime. All right, let's spin around.
Hey, Nicholas, we're actually not seeing what you're seeing.
Oh, that's
We're still on Revit.
Are you still on Revit? What about now? Anything?
No, it's still on Revit.
All right, let's try it.
Did you share your screen to show Revit or your desktop?
Revit, I believe. Let me double check.
That would be why. If it opens another program, we wouldn't be able to see anything else.
Oh, okay. So can I switch it? The new share. Okay. Let me start that back up. Okay. New share. What about now? You
There
got
we
it?
go. Yep.
All right. So we're looking at Inkscape now, and we see we've got this red brick, we've got these wood windows, all the out-of-the-box stuff. We don't have any real material on our shingles. So we kind of fly around it, look and see what we have. And we're like, that's really dark, so we can change the sun angles, brighten it up a little bit. And then we can go into some settings. Kind of change the color temperature. Change the saturation of the image, and just a lot of different things you can do once you get your drawing how you want to do it. And we can add grass and everything like that too. If we go back and add basically a different floor for Revit, we can change the clouds here where we want them to set and just kind of play with the different shadows you can get. Longitude, we can add the contrails, take them away. Sun, we want it to be crazy bright. We want the stars and the moon to come out if we take the sun down. Like all kinds of stuff you can really do to just really get a good rendering for your client. And that was just like a really quick down and dirty version of it, right? So obviously I wouldn't send this to a client like this, but that was just trying to show you the software that we can use and like all the different cool things you can do with that. That program is also capable of producing walkthroughs for clients. So you can go through the actual building in 3D and you can set furniture in there. You can do all kinds of things. It's just a matter of how in-depth you want to go with your client to show them all those kind of things. And if they want to pay for it too, because there's sometimes clients don't want you to spend a ton of time on a rendering and charge them for it. So that's something to get out of the way up front, to know what your project scope is and what they need and what they don't want, and just kind of go from there. That's basically some of the things I was going to talk about. If anybody has any questions or anything, we can go ahead and jump into it. I don't want to go over time or anything.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Uh, we've got a couple of questions in, but students that are watching, if you haven't got a chance to submit your questions, if you want to scroll down, click on the Google Doc link there. You can pull up a Google form, ask a question, and we'll get to those now. So the first question we've got is, what is the hardest part of your job?
Hardest part of my job is mm, I would say stopping myself from working sometimes, because you get to a point where the different phases of a project. So you'll have schematic design where you're just going crazy. You just do whatever you want to do to get a design nailed down. And then you get to design development, and they're like, well, we can change this here, we can change that there. And like the design process never really stops, because even once you printed the drawings and sent them off to the client, and the building's being built, you'll get a question from a contractor. You're like, well, we can change this and this and save some money here and save some money there and get this a better aesthetic here. So just like saying, stop. We got to build it. We got to get it built. It is what it is. There it is. And I don't know an architect who's ever built a building or done a project and then gone to view the building even years later, but we should have done that right there. That would have been really cool. And, write it down or something as a lessons learned. So that's probably like the hardest thing. It's just saying it's done, put it out there. Let's be happy with it. That or when you have a really challenging project, trying to figure out how you're actually going to make something work. You might have this huge cantilever and you're like, well, how are we even going to make that stand up? How do we keep that from collapsing and falling? And then we have to pay a bunch of money to fix it. So those are probably the two most challenging things.
Cool. Obviously, everyone wants to do good in life. They want to make sure that they can, have a good lifestyle. So without disclosing your finances, what is a good, starting point for students getting into this career, and how much could they potentially make?
That's a great question. So it varies from state to state, really. And that kind of depends on the market in that state. I think Oklahoma, a starting salary for an architect right out of school is probably somewhere in the $40,000 range. But if you were somewhere like California or something like that, it's probably closer to 60. I believe it was the last thing I saw, but I don't know what it is globally. And then, of course, with the pandemic, I think the scales have changed as well for graduates and things like that. And one thing I would say about that, people ask that question a lot, but one thing that to take into consideration with that is your skill set. So if you and I are both graduated at the same time, but I interned for 2 years and you haven't interned at all, I'm going to look more valuable to that firm because I'll be able to kind of keep up with a more day-to-day aspect of I'll know a little bit better how things go on a day-to-day. I'll have a better idea of what clients expect, what my bosses expect, and what I expect from myself. Whereas you would be being trained on how to do a lot of different things. We'll have the same skill set probably coming out of school. So we've learned some of the same things, but I've applied it for a longer period of time than you have. So I can kind of just hit the ground running, whereas you might need a little bit more coaching. So that your skill set makes you a little bit more valuable than someone else. So I would say if it's something that you're interested in and you want to, that's what you want to do, intern. And interning will help you figure out, one, if you want to do it at all anymore, or you'll get a little bit of a head start on some of your peers that are going to be graduating with you. I was one of maybe 4 people in my graduating class that actually interned during the year while doing class. So when we were graduating, they were all looking for jobs. I was looking for a job as well, but at that time, the economy was on a downturn. And a lot of my friends graduated and just moved home and just worked odd jobs until the market kind of turned around. I already had been interning. And my boss offered me a position to stay if I wanted to stay and do architecture, which is what I wanted to do. I didn't want to do anything else until the market turned around and get away from architecture. I wanted to stay in it. So it's one thing to think about. Just, make yourself as valuable as you possibly can, and then you'll be able to negotiate better. That was one thing I would say.
Cool. So I'm going to combine a couple of questions to save a little bit of time. I know you talked about drawing being a really handy skill set. So thinking about our students going into high school, we have 8th to ninth graders right now. So they're just beginning, their high school careers. What are a couple of things that they can do in high school to kind of get them ready for this? Now you talked about drawing, some maybe taking some art classes. I know when I was in high school, I even went to a really small high school, and we had a class that had AutoCAD. So that might be something that's available for students, even in bigger school districts. So what are some things that they could start looking forward to in high school?
Like you said, art classes are always good. You can kind of figure out some of the tools that might be useful for you with architecture going down the road, like for instance, perspectives and things with line work techniques, things like that. A lot of that stuff is, I don't want to say it's obsolete because you can still use it. Like there are still firms that have people that do hand renderings. And I would love it if we get hand renderings here from time to time, just because it's so much fun and you get to use a skill set you don't use very often. And so art classes can help you do that. And I should have mentioned, I'm originally from Texas. So Texas had a bit different, I guess, curriculum when it came to drafting courses. I'm not exactly sure how it works here in Oklahoma, what courses are available, but I do know that different VOTECs here in Oklahoma City especially offer drafting courses. And I think that there are a couple of different tech programs that are implemented at several of the school districts throughout the state. So if your school has any kind of program that offers any drafting courses or art courses or, technology courses in general that deal with drafting, I would look into it and see what their coursework is like. And if it's kind of on that same path, give it a go. Worst case scenario, you spend a semester drawing and you don't like it, and you've learned before you spend a couple $1,000s on a college education. So
yeah, that's definitely key because somebody like me, I changed my major like 3 or 4 times.
yeah.
So the earlier you can kind of figure out what you want to do, the better. So that way you're not wasting all that time. So 2 last questions I'll answer or ask together. First one is it difficult to be an engineer? And then the second one is, for these students that are watching and anyone else that's interested in architecture, I know you mentioned one of the Sketch website. What are some other resources they could go to?
Okay. So that the program I mentioned was Google SketchUp, and you can find that on Google. You can just download that. If there are some other programs you're interested in, you might be able to find a couple free versions of Revit online. There's also Inkscape, which I think there's a couple free versions online, trial versions. There's also this program, I think it was called Flickr, I believe it's called. And that is similar to Inkscape, but with Flickr, you can build your building, and then you can have all kinds of things going on around it. So you can build a building, and then you can have cars that are driving by it. You can have birds flying. You can have trees swaying. You can have all kinds of stuff in it. So that's a real cool one that we're actually looking at here at my firm. There's another one called Lumion, which is similar to that. And you can do all kinds of landscaping with Lumion. You can build a house in Revit, import it into Lumion, put it on a hill, put a body of water around it, put a boat in the water that sails past the house, like all kinds of crazy stuff. So those are pretty fun programs to use and work with. And what was the first question? I'm sorry.
If it's difficult to be an engineer.
Engineers, I don't know. So architects and engineers, so my firm is a full service firm. So we have engineers in-house. And we have mechanical engineers, we have plumbing engineers, structural engineers, electrical engineers, civil engineers. So they all bring their different aspects to the project, and we all just kind of collaborate from there. it seems like it'd be difficult to be an engineer just because I don't do it. So I know a lot of them have to deal with different types of calculations. So they do a lot of math. I don't do a lot of math, thank God, because I'm terrible at math. A lot of people think architects are like mathematicians. I am not. I'm as far away from math as you can get. I just need to know heights and widths and coursing out bricks. Like that's pretty much as much math as I do. But they run a lot of different various calculations. Like mechanical engineers might have to figure out, what the pressure needs to be set at for an RTU for a room to stay, cool and air to be flowing at a certain rate and all these kind of things. Electrical engineers have to do lighting calculations. So they have to take some everything that's in the room, like even the carpet, if it has a reflectancy on it, they need to know that value and plug it into this formula to get a lighting calculations, and lighting calculations can deal with whether or not the building is eco-friendly or not, things like that. Structural engineers have to calculate beam sizes. So if your foundation is this deep and your roof has this much load on it, how big does this column need to be to hold this portion of the roof, and how far apart does the next column need to be to hold up, all this. So it seems challenging to me, but some people who are really good at math and all that kind of stuff, they absolutely love it. So that would, I'm probably not the best to answer that question, but as far as being an architect, it can be hard, but it's also a ton of fun. So I wouldn't steer you away from it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, for architecture and construction, I know you've got a lot of different careers that come together. It's not just, you're not just an architect. Like that's not a real, like you're not just that. You do a ton of different things. So I think that's going to lead me into my last question. Obviously in life, there's not really one path. You don't just do one thing all your life. You're not going to do something for 70 years. You're going to kind of try other things. So let's say somebody goes through the program, they're in your shoes, they've done this for about 10 years, and then they want to get out of it and then kind of try something else. What's another step within that career field that they could take?
It's a great question. So you can go into project management, which is basically you oversee everything at a higher level of a project. So you'll deal with the budget, you'll deal with the contractor, you'll deal with the client, you'll deal with preparing all the forms that you need for the client. Like for our DoD projects, there's a lot of reports and things that they need for their records. So you'll be preparing that kind of thing based off their criteria and submitting, and making sure the hours on the project are in line with the budget of the project. You can go into construction management. So you, with your skill set of being able to read a set of drawings, you could work for a construction firm and just kind of go through the drawings, and you could point out areas where there's something lacking or something that you really need to pay attention to and get ahead of before you get to that phase of the construction. You could do, I've had several friends that have gotten out of it altogether, and I have one friend, for instance, because he is good at reading construction drawings, he got a job at a bank approving construction loans. So his whole job is to take a set of drawings, look at it, and say the contractor said, yeah, we'll need $6 million for this project. He'll say, oh, no, you need 8, or, no, you only need 3, that kind of thing, kind of evaluating needs on the project and adjusting budgets like that. I have another friend who, he got into banking, similar to the other friend, but he got to the point where, oh, my battery's running low. He got to the point where he does investments for contractors and things like that. So he goes all over the world and looks at construction budget projects and either has his bank invest in them or turns them down. So there's a lot of different stuff.
Awesome. We'll let you go before your battery dies, so that way we don't lose you. No, you're good. We're about out of time anyway. So thank you so much, Nicholas, for taking time out of your day to speak with us.